Assalamu alaikum, this is Ibrahim from islamicfinanceguru.com and welcome. Today we're going to explore 4 key criticisms of Islamic mortgages and whether or not they hold up to scrutiny. The first complaint is that Islamic mortgages charge more than normal mortgages. The second complaint, Islamic mortgages don't use local rental rates, they actually use libor instead. The third complaint is, why are Islamic mortgages pegging to libor in the first place? Why aren't they pegging to any other measurement? And the fourth complaint is, why do they not share in the downside risk? So let's deal with each of those in turn. Why do Islamic mortgages charge more than normal mortgages? Well, there are 2 key reasons why. Firstly, normal mortgages are targeted at a community of 70-80 million people, the entire population of the UK, whereas Islamic mortgages are targeting a very small subset of that. I mean, Muslims are 2.5 million. So because of that, there is a bespoke element to the Islamic mortgage. It's got a smaller target audience. It can't get the kind of audience that you would get for a normal mortgage. So they have to price that accordingly. And then the second key reason is because Islamic mortgages can't use the central bank to borrow money from, and so they have to use savings accounts. They take in money from the people who need to save, and then they use that money to fund their mortgages. But that's actually quite expensive relative to the central bank, who only charges a lower interest rate. And so because of that, their cost of financing, their cost of actually getting the money in the first place, is a lot higher than a normal mortgage providers, and so therefore they have to charge accordingly. So now moving on to the second issue, why don't Islamic mortgages use local rental rates? Why do they use interest rates? There's 2 reasons for that. The first is it's much easier when you are in a market of mortgages to use the standard metric that everyone uses to measure against, and that is the interest rate. So if Islamic mortgages started using rental rates, it would be very difficult for customers to be able to work out exactly where they stand. The second reason is because it would actually be more expensive. So the rental rate that you would be charged in somewhere like London or elsewhere even is roughly 4-5% plus, and whereas the interest rate is a lot lower than that. So it is actually in the interest of Islamic mortgage providers to charge rental rates, but they are charging less than that. The third issue is, aren't Islamic mortgages, when they peg to libor, just charging interest? Well, no, because if I was an ice cream shop and I had a pub across the road from me, and the pub was charging £10 per head for, I don't know, a pint of lager, and I looked at that and I thought, all right, I will peg my premium ice cream to that price. I will also charge £10 or whatever they charge for their lager, I'll charge that. Your £10, when you earn that £10, it's completely halal for you, even though you're pegging it to something that's potentially haram. But that's fine. And this is exactly the same thing that's going on with Islamic mortgages as well. Then we've got the final issue, which is, why don't Islamic mortgages share in the downside risk? The reason for that can be explained by a story. Let's say you are a family who have a father who owned a house, and the father passed away and he passed it down to his children. Now, this house is worth a lot of money, and at one point the children want to sell it and they want to realize their gains. The problem is that it's a downturn in the market, and the house prices have gone down. And let's say there's 3 brothers. 2 of the brothers are not that keen to sell the house, whereas one of the brothers needs the money. And so he says, let's sell the house. And the 2 other brothers say, no, I don't want to sell the house because I'll sell it at a loss. But the other brother is really keen. So the 2 brothers who don't want to sell, they say, fine, okay, if you buy us out at what we think is an acceptable price, then we don't mind if we sell and actually take a bit of a hit on the actual price, as long as we get what we think is fair. We don't mind if you sell and get a lower price on your portion, but on our portion we want to make sure that we get the right price. And so they do. And this is exactly the same with an Islamic mortgage. An Islamic mortgage provider owns a portion of the house, and it's up to them to decide whether or not they're going to sell the house, which is their property, at that price. And if they're not agreeable to that, then there's really nothing that you and I can do. And I think that's perfectly fair as well. So there you are, guys. 4 key criticisms of Islamic mortgages and 4 responses to each of those.